Hey there, post recording Jared here. So, as you can see, this is a very long episode stretching around 2 hours and 12 minutes of great informational and conversational content. So, I've taken the liberty of finding and locating all the various different topics that were discussed in this episode and finding their timestamps. So, instead of listening to this episode in its entirety, which you can do, you can instead look for specific topics contained within this episode. So, here they are. So, starting from the beginning, me and Miss Abby talk about various different topics and miscellaneous ideas just to get the ball rolling. Starting at the 47-minute and 35-second mark, I talk about one of my favorite German infographic YouTubers by the name of Kurskanat, which segues perfectly into the 58-minute and 50-second mark, where I discuss about smoking, vaping, and drugs, and anything of the sort and its impact on our current generation and future generations. Starting at the hour and 17-minute and 37-second mark, we talk about TikTok and how it's greatly reduced the attention span of our current generation. At the hour and 27-minute and 3-second mark, we talk about how worldviews mature over time and how they evolve. At the hour and 50-minute and 20-second mark, we talk about how important socialization is and how friendships dictate the environment and the organization and your interpretation of everything. And lastly, at the hour and 53-minute mark, we talk about how teaching is a subtle passion of mine and my impact on my community because of these opportunities. But please keep in mind, these times are merely approximate. So, with that being said, I hope you're having a great day, and let's get on with the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 27th edition to the Speakeasy Dwellers podcast. It is I, your host, Jared, and welcome back, Miss Abby. She's over here.
Hi,
It
it's
is
good to be.
current. Yeah, it's good to be back. It's good to be back. Um, it is currently the 8th of May. This is actually something that I didn't do the last time we talked. We immediately go into talking. I completely forgot that I usually give the date and the time of recording when I do this.
Mm.
So it is currently February, not February, oh my gosh. It is the 8th of May at 3:14 p.m. So this is very early for me to be doing these kind of podcast episodes. But the demons that come in your mind don't really pop in until like, 10, 11 o'clock. You know how it is. But yeah. So, the last time we talked, we were both still in Colombia. Are you still in Colombia?
I am, yeah. I am staying here for the summer, in hopes of just working here. That has gone downhill, but yeah, I'm in Colombia. And you're
Yeah,
in New York.
I am in New York. Yeah. It was quite the move out process. We ended up so my
Yeah.
dad ended up what? You said
I
something?
was wondering how that went because one time I went to Jared's and there was just kind of stuff, not stuff everywhere, but I was like, how is he getting this back to New York? So I did wonder how that went.
Everything went down. Everything didn't go down. Sorry, went up? Yes, went up. I ended up renting out a storage unit about a month or two prior to moving out in order to, move the stuff that I absolutely do not need, like shower curtains. I don't need shower curtains when I go back to New York. Bedding, I don't really need that. A bunch of the clothes that I have down here don't need that as well. Um,
Mm.
so just making sure that that stuff stays down in South Carolina. And I just brought up, my backpack, my French horn, all my hats, my computer stuff. And
Hmm.
then I brought at least a week's worth of clothes. And then I
Yep.
added some stuff in there that I didn't necessarily need. Um, but was like, hey, it'd be nice to bring this up, and that's what I put in my check bag because it's actually very cool. My mom's always raised me up in order to pack efficiently and
Mm-hmm.
to always, and since my family are a bunch of cheapskates when it comes to traveling, we always love being able to pack all their things into our free carry-on bag. So
Yeah.
I was able to put a week's worth of clothing in my carry-on bag.
Oh my God.
Seven pairs of underwear, seven socks, seven undershirts, and then seven, mix of polos and t-shirts, and seven pants as
Mhm.
well. Well, actually, you don't really need seven. I don't even own seven. pants, but like, sweatpants, cargos, you know how it is.
Mhm.
And I was able to
Yeah.
pack all that. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I got all the things that I definitely do need. So anything else that I was able to bring up was just icing on the cake. And I usually don't use a check bag in order to pack things. So it feels weird having all that space and not being worried about, if something's going to be able to fit in or not. So
Yeah. And oh, when you told me you were driving back, 'cause you had sent me like a snap, and I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, are you driving back? So jeez. But mm,
yeah, yeah, we drove back. So it was actually a very chaotic move out day.
mhm.
So I did a lot of preliminary stuff, like started to take off the posters, did some laundry, and then pretty much gutted my closet. So a lot of the
Mhm.
clothing stuff, after I finished all my laundry, that was done pretty much the day before, and then the second day
Yeah.
was pretty much just moving everything else out, all the miscellaneous items. Um, and that was chaotic because I couldn't wash all my bedding because, well, I still had to sleep. So
Yeah.
we,
A little
and
important.
yeah, just a little important. So I had the bedding, so we had to wait for the laundry to be done. And the thing is, that we never actually got done with our laundry when we left. Not
Oh.
everything was washed and not everything was dried.
Oh
Um,
God. I
and
can saw you.
the reason why was we didn't realize it, but the exhaust vent on our dryer was actually disconnected.
Oh.
So we actually weren't
Oh
drying
no.
anything as efficiently as we could because the exhaust vent was uh, taken out, and that's why the room was put up to like 84 degrees because the heat from the dryer was leaking out to the rest of the apartment. I'm also pretty sure that the air conditioning unit was broken and we couldn't really fix it because it was we just for some odd reason could not get that temperature down whatsoever in the past week. I don't know if you were in there. Were you in there for the past week? I think so. You probably felt how hot the room was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
There
you
was
felt how.
I was there when we did. Oh yeah, because I dropped you off when we got groceries, and I did kind of. I just assumed it was because we had just been outside in like freaking April in South Carolina, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be hot inside. But now it makes sense now that you're mentioning it. It was a little toasty, but I guess that's why.
Yeah, it was so hot in there that when we would be in there, I would be well adjusted, me and Robbie would be well adjusted to it, and my poor dad would be sweating out of his mind, of just how hot it was. And we would actually go outside and we feel cold. That's how hot it was in there. Like it was probably 75 degrees outside in the sun, and we felt cold out there compared to being in our room. And I was just like, wow. We just we had to what's the word I'm like adjust to such hot temperatures that
Yeah.
the hot kind of felt cold. It reminds me. I think I probably told you about this when I went down to Texas. Like Texas, in the middle of the summer, about midday, gets all the way up to well above 100 degrees. 100,
Yeah, I've
105,
been.
110, right? Um, which actually makes it very interesting when the night comes and when you're in the morning and you go outside and you feel cold when you go outside. Given that you're in the shade as well, you're not in direct sunlight, but you feel cold and like,
Yeah.
wow, it's such a big temperature difference. I wonder what how many degrees it is outside. And you look at the thermostat and it's like 94. It's like,
Mm,
what?
yeah.
How is it so hot here that 94 seems cold? This is
Mm.
crazy.
That's like I think it might also be lack of humidity because like we were in Arizona. Well, I mean, we did go to Texas for a day. Like we went to the Buc-ee's there, and it was of course hot. Um, in Arizona, it was really hot throughout the day, and like we went to bed, it got so cold. Woke up. It's like 4 a.m. We had to wake up to go hike the canyon, and it was cold. Not even a few hours later, it was steaming. Like people were passing out at that point from the heat, and it was just so crazy how I know yours was like kind of separate from this, just explaining like how 94, like whatever, but this was like it would be cold. I say that with quotation marks, cold. It's like you said, like 90, 94, and then just get to a point where people are passing out. Like it's crazy to me how that, and it's so dry there. Like it's just that's crazy to me how that works. I don't know.
Yeah, I know my parents talk about Death Valley out there on the west side of the
Mhm,
United States, and how before I was born they would love to go hiking and camping all the way out there.
mhm.
And the one thing that they were encouraged to do nowadays, I feel like it's the norm for people to do this, but bring an umbrella when you're out there. Eat lots of salts, like get your potato chips, and then
Yeah.
drink. If you know if you feel like you're thirsty, it's too late. And if you don't feel like drinking, drink because you're gonna regret it in about
Yeah.
like an hour, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
my parents didn't really understand how important that was to drink and bring the what's his name, the umbrella, until they didn't bring the umbrella and they forgot to drink and they were just suffering. And then the next day
Mhm.
they went out there and made sure to prepare, they ate, their potato chips. They made sure they drank a lot and kept on drinking and brought the umbrella. And they said it was a night and day difference and they haven't gone back since.
Mm.
Like
Well, you'd
we
be
w
surprised. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go, you go.
I was saying, like, you'd be surprised how many people actually, like, don't know that because when I like I said, when I went to Arizona, I went hiking, the counselors say, like, "Please, God, get, like, salty snacks, drink water," even if you're like what you were saying, basically. And everybody, like, maybe three-fourths of the people there thought it was a joke. They're like, "Oh, we'll be fine. We're hydrated. It's totally fine." And I'm just kinda like, I don't really trust that. So I did hydrate. I was one of the ones luckily that didn't pass out, but you just they they just didn't follow those rules, and they found out pretty quick that they weren't kidding, and like I said, a lot of people surprisingly don't know that, and I guess it's because where we live or just things like that, but I just thought that was interesting to hear
Yeah,
about your
I
parents.
know, especially when I went to the victory parade for the national champions. The one thing I
Already.
regret
Yeah.
not bringing was water. I did not bring water.
Mm,
And I
yeah.
also did not bring an umbrella. I am telling you, there
Yeah.
were three people around me who passed out. And Robbie ended up coming over probably in the last 20 minutes of it. He got the important
Mhm.
gist of it.
Well,
But
you
I
can
told
go
him to
with
bring
me
water
get the
and an
umbrella.
umbrella.
Mhm.
And um, the second, because I couldn't move out of where I was, because we remember we were like right next to
Yeah.
the gates there,
Mhm.
and I didn't move
Yeah.
from that spot at all. Um, so here I am,
Oh,
packed like sardines, and I'm just standing
yeah.
here, no umbrella, no water, in the beating sun, and all of a sudden the ceremony ends and I see where Robbie is, so I'm going to walk over there. I take one step and I swear my lower body almost gave out because I didn't realize how much like strain I was putting on my body just by standing there until I moved. It's kind of like when
Yeah.
you're like sitting and you're like cross-legged and you try to stand up and you don't realize that
Mhm.
your leg is asleep. So when you try to take a
Yeah.
step, your body gives out. That was almost the exact same thing. Like I didn't realize how long I've been standing there until I took a step and my lower body almost gave out and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it." But thankfully I did make it
Yeah.
and I downed that entire bottle of water in about probably 10 seconds. And I was just like, "Oh my
Yeah,
gosh."
because yeah, it was like a 20-minute, maybe about a 20-minute walk from where we were to like just the walk in general to get there, and it was steaming. I don't even remember. I didn't even stay for the start of it. Like I forgot I had something to do that day, and I completely forgot what it was. But I was like, yeah, I'll go, and like me and Jared were talking about going, because I don't want to go by myself. And then as I was like, okay, I gotta go. Robbie was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go with you and get an umbrella." And I was like, "You're gonna walk all the way back and then walk back again." I'm like, "Okay." So I mean, he got the umbrella. I mean, it's but,
He did get
I
the
know a lot of
umbrella.
band kids who were yeah, a lot of band people that were up there, they were so burnt later, and they were telling us, they're like, "Yeah, they didn't have any water, they didn't do this or that."
What do you mean? They
And
had
they
so much water. They had I saw
yeah,
all of them had at least four
mhm,
bottles of water, and I'm just like,
yeah,
oh man. I know I was talking with
yeah,
one of them during the dress rehearsal we had later that day,
mhm,
and I was
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about how I had a headache from being out there because I
mhm,
was so underprepared. And they were like,
mhm,
"Oh, you get to complain about it? You could have left anytime." I was like, "No, I couldn't have.
mhm,
I could not have left anytime I wanted to.
uh,
Plus, even though I chose to be there, that does not mean that I can't complain about my poor decisions."
yeah,
Um,
yeah. But,
yeah,
I remember I was talking to a saxophone player at the rehearsal. I guess, like I said, we had rehearsal that night, and they were like, "Yeah, they told us to wear like shorts, like either the black ones we have for the uniform or blue jean or cat, just any kind of shorts, basically." And they were like, "Yeah, I wore jeans because I thought it would be a little bit chilly." And I just kind of looked at them and I'm like, "Why?" I think it was either jeans or shorts, honestly. But I was just kind of like, "Why would you wear jeans in that kind of weather?"
yeah, I don't know
I
how
don't
you
know.
justify wearing jeans down south. Like, I could barely even wear jeans up here, let alone wearing jeans down south. And when I learned that it was part of our uniform for, volleyball band and basketball band, I was
Hmm.
like, you got to be joking me. Because I had
I
a mini
understand. Go ahead.
I had a mini panic attack the first time I did volleyball band because I didn't do volleyball band my freshman year. And so
Yeah.
I opted to sub, right? And then they're like, "Oh yeah,
Hmm.
the uniform is, a, your garnet polo and then dark blue jeans." And I'm like, "Dark blue jeans?" And they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh my gosh."
Jeans
Because
are insane.
I left all my jeans up in New
Hmm.
York because why would I need
Yeah.
jeans in South Carolina? I got my khakis, I got my cargo pants. Like, what else am
Hmm.
I gonna need? And then they told me, I was like, oh my gosh. So now I have two pairs of jeans. One's like an acid wash, and then the other one are my dark blue jeans. And they're the only two jeans that I still own. And I left them down there in South Carolina because I am not wearing those.
Yeah.
I will not willingly wear jeans unless I have to, because that's just how unbearable they are.
Yeah. I made the mistake of wearing jeans whenever I went to New York and they were skinny jeans, so they stuck to me and it was the worst experience I've ever had. It was not fun. And then with there was something else. With volleyball band, I can understand maybe wearing jeans because you're inside. It's not necessarily the hottest, and plus it's during like what August to November, I think, October, somewhere
Yeah,
around
something
there.
like
So
that.
it's not yeah, so it's not the worst, but whenever it came to basketball band, I was kinda like, I was like, "No, thank you." Um, but I wore jeans today to go to Canal Side to sign or, like, figure out what was going on with my lease, and I was like, "It's not gonna be that bad. I'm just gonna go for 30 minutes, wear my skinny jeans." It was so bad. I was like, "Why would I do that?" And it was awful. When I got home, I immediately changed. I used to be a big blue jeans type of girl. I've recently been wearing khaki shorts, with
Converted her,
little
y'all.
yep,
Welcome to the
I
brighter side
actually
of life.
yeah, I was thinking about that the other day, like, I was like, "I really wanna wear my khaki shorts," and Jared did pop into my head, and I was like, "No, like, I'm not gonna wear them. 'Em, don't do it, Abby," and then I wore them. I was like,
I
"Okay."
am telling you.
So
So I was never really a khaki guy. I mean, I would wear khakis in the summer because what else am I gonna wear? I wear shorts, so all I got are cargo pants, and they're all khakis.
mhm,
Just that's just how it is. But during the winter, I used to be a really big blue jean person, and I would always wear that during the winter. And
yeah.
up until my senior year of high school, and my mom bought me a pair of khakis. And I put them on, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever. Why would I ever want to wear jeans ever again? And so I wore that exact same pair of khakis pretty much throughout the entire year. And I eventually got made fun of for wearing the khakis because that's how
Oh,
much I wore them. Like, people would call it the Jared fit whenever you walk into the high school wearing your band jacket the
Mhm.
uh, um the khaki pants and then a polo. That was called the Jared fit because that's what I always walk into. You've probably seen me in public. What do I wear?
Mhm.
I wear my cargo pants, and most of the time I wear a polo. And that's
Yeah.
just,
And sometimes you have like your Carolina jacket and just kind of depending on the weather.
yeah.
Yeah, I've
Sometimes like
noticed
if
that.
it's cold, I'll wear my fleece.
Mhm.
Um, and then if it's
And
raining,
your
I'll wear
hat.
my. Oh yes, I always wear a hat now. Something I
Sorry, I
couldn't
got so
do.
mad.
What?
I got
What?
so mad that one. So we for band like for mellophones, we snipe people essentially. And there was this one dude who had on khaki shorts, a polo, and a red hat, and the book bag for some reason I had thought looked like Jared's, and I was like, oh, that's Jared, and I was so excited to finally snipe him. And then I get a text in the chat, and Jared's like, that's not even my book bag, and I was like, Jesus. So that's I guess that maybe shows how much we associate that with Jared, but that made me
Yeah,
so mad.
I actually I was wearing a different color cap because I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure you took a photo and it was with a black cap and a black bag. But
Oh,
I
it was
have
a
a
red hat.
it was a red hat. I must have been wearing a black hat or
Mhm.
something. I
Yeah,
was
it was a
wearing the
red
opposite
hat.
color, whatever the hat was, and then they had a black bag and I have a red bag. And to Abby's credit, I do usually wear polos, but on that day I was not wearing a polo. I was wearing a
Mhm.
t-shirt.
Yeah.
So
The amount
just to
of
add
like
insult to
sadness,
injury.
the amount of sadness and anger and embarrassment that came with that. Oh, I held that little grudge for a hot minute. Yeah,
Oh man.
I'm so mad.
Oh, well, trust me, I know how to check if it is myself. I do
Mhm.
own the paper plate award of the most sniped man or most snipeable man in Carolina for the 2022 to 2023 year,
Mhm. Yeah. And
of which
then Matthew had it.
yeah, Sharditsky, and then he's gonna have the honor of giving away the most snipeable man in
Unless
Carolina.
he just gets sniped a shit ton this year, which
Oh,
he did last year.
impossible,
So
impossible. Sharnitsky could never,
well,
because he doesn't live on
yeah.
campus.
My
I actually don't know what his living
mm,
situation is for next year.
you're right. You're right. I don't know. Living off campus has been such a headache. We've been in the process of like signing for our lease and signing just for everything, and we had to do like a $75 deposit, and my dumbass forgot to move it from one account to the other account.
Uh-oh.
And as they went to go take it out, they emailed me and they're like, "Hey, this isn't right." I'm like, "Shit." So I had to go up there today, do a whole money order because I don't take card, and then since the three of us that are living there are technically unemployed, our parents are like our guarantors, and they're like, "You're technically accepted, but with conditions." And I called up there like two or three times yesterday to talk to the person that was over our lease, and she just never called me back. I was like, okay.
Ah, wonderful.
So it's been a really big headache. So Jared, whenever you do your stuff, I don't know if you've already like signed or just be aware, be cautious.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's the one thing I'm gonna bring up when I eventually do my classes for U 101 next semester. One of the
Mhm.
big things I'll bring up is encouraging people to be like, yeah, you 95% of your entire class will not get housing next year. So, with that being
Is that what
said,
they tell you?
it, there is no such thing as continuing student housing. That is a myth made up by Big Pharma, by the Illuminati. There is no such thing as continuing student housing, right? So, what I'm going to
Well,
encourage you to do is the second you step foot on campus, the second classes start, of course, do your syllabus week, but then every other week after that is finding housing.
mhm.
If you're looking for
Well, what made
housing,
me laugh? Oh, go ahead.
if you're looking for housing past the month of December, you're done for
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
at least 80% of the leases have already been signed. I guarantee you at
Mhm.
least 80%. I consider myself lucky that I'm able to have a lease in Olympia right now with two other guys. We actually found another person and he actually signed the lease with us. It's
Yeah,
wonderful.
that's good.
It's actually wonderful.
Just I can hear your joy. I can hear it over
Oh
the phone.
my
And you're like, oh
gosh, I am so happy. Oh my gosh. And this is the reason why it was so easy because this guy's actually financially mature. He is
okay.
28 years old, I believe. And he spent the past
Oh,
9 years in the Air Force. So
nice.
very, very mature person, has his own job. So he knows what his money is. So he doesn't have to go to his parents in order to ask, to be their guarantor or whatever. Um,
Hmm.
but Well, the thing is, to go back to your other point, you are still technically employed. When you say you're technically
Yeah.
unemployed, you are still technically
So,
employed, but you're a full-time student.
so the issue with that was during band season, it's almost impossible to work. So during the first semester, my dad usually, helps me out. I get my refund check. My housing for last year literally equates to the rent that we're gonna pay for like 5 months. Like this, okay, like first semester housing was like, let's say, I think it was like 6,000, something like that for me. Three to 6,000, I don't even remember. But the amount we paid on campus housing will cover my like off campus. So we're gonna put the loan for the same amount and then just use that for my housing so I don't have to stress out about paying it or doing whatever. And that works because my loan covers off campus. But the thing is, I don't know how to explain it. I don't know, but I have my rent covered. The issue right now is that Ben doesn't have a job. I have a job, but construction has not finished where I'm working yet, so technically not working. And then I think Elise is working somewhere off campus or like in our hometown. So when we signed for the papers, I couldn't put my work, what I'm doing for the summer or my income because I didn't necessarily have any. So I just put
Right.
my dad's, Ben put his mom's. Like it's a mess with stuff like that. I mean, I just don't even know how to explain it, or I don't even remember the point we were making there, but it just,
You
I don't
you were
know.
complaining about the entire signing the lease and stuff. Yeah, the one thing I
Yeah.
had to learn was guarantors. And the thing is, like, the
Hmm.
people that are living there don't have to have an income, but they have to have
Yeah.
someone to represent them that does have an
Mhm.
income
Yeah.
that will
Yes.
pay
Yeah.
for them, right? And the way that Olympia does it is the guarantors are not signed for a particular person, but instead they're
Hmm.
guaranteeing the entire unit.
Yeah.
So
That's yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's how it is usually, but I know my
Hmm.
interpretation of guarantor was they were guaranteeing for a particular roommate and they were paying for that specific person, excuse me. Um, but yeah,
That's how ours.
and I'm pretty sure you also probably can't put in any information about your work since you started work recently, so you don't have any tax forms
Mhm.
yet
Yeah. Nope. I do not.
or any
Which.
form of income proof like money
Yeah.
stamps.
Mhm. Yeah. Because when I was working at the calzone place, probably too much to share, but I'm pretty sure I got paid at the pay table for the first few weeks. I mean, now it's like direct deposit. So whenever I did kind of work there or I filled in for a night, it did get direct deposited to me. But before, I didn't really have any forms or anything. So I mean, I would have been screwed over either way. But hopefully, it's worked itself out. But I will say, people like you at USC, like Jared was saying, look for housing. We don't have student housing, like for off campus. This is not like a student housing, like in a lot of places in Columbia. This is more of a family oriented place we're living at. So we can sign our lease like 2 months in advance and move in versus student housing. I've noticed you have to sign like months in advance to be able to just live there. But that's basically what Jared, I guess, was saying. But I don't know if I mentioned this to you, Jared. There was a tour. There's been multiple tours going on, but I think this was for like admitted students day. There was a person telling them, like, yeah, there's plenty of like on campus housing you'll have even when you're not a freshman. And me and my
That
roommate kind of just stopped in our tracks and like looked at the group and we're just kind of like,
I will gladly
no.
get arrested if it means telling those students the truth. I will,
Yeah. So they'll lie to you.
Because if Because if I were passing by one of those groups and I overheard that, because they would have been like within earshot range, so I would be like right behind those people. If I heard one of them say that, I would cough so obnoxiously loud. Because I'm like,
Mhm.
how are you legally allowed to lie through your teeth like that? Like there are so many, like everybody knows when you're going on college tours that they're going to lie to you about something. Right. And if you
Yeah.
go to a tour thinking that they're going to be completely honest, even though it'd be like, oh yeah, I'm just like one of you. Used to be just like one of y'all, so I know
Mhm.
exactly what you're thinking right now, so you can tell me anything. They're gonna lie a bunch.
Mhm.
And I mean, I never personally went on a single campus tour
Mhm.
until new student orientation. That was the
Yeah.
first time I ever toured a campus. Um, So being able to experience what it's like being on the other side of, campus tours feels very weird being a student and then just being watched. And be like, oh yeah,
Mhm.
this is Russell House. This is where a lot of the students like to eat. Oh, this is the Starbucks by, the Humanities building. I like to drink here every morning. Ladies, I know you agree with
Mhm.
me. Um, but
That was like pretty spot on. That was pretty good, Jared.
yeah,
Uh,
it's like I know a thing or two because I've seen a thing or two. We are farmers, bum 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 bum. Um, but it's just like I can't believe they're allowed to lie through their teeth that much.
Mhm.
Like there's got to be
I,
some type
yeah.
of script that they're following at that point.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. My UK friend that just left, sadly, he's hopefully coming back in a year or two, but his girlfriend, I think she works for some of the tours, and I'm pretty sure he was, kind of mentioning that they do have scripts. So I understand like they're doing their job essentially, like because again they do get paid for it. They're doing their job as in like this is what we have to say. And I think they make it in a way. The only blatant lie I've heard is like, yeah, we can give you housing like after your first year, but I think they're dropping off the part that's like only if you're an RA, which is still hard to get now. Um, but they also just kind of they don't I'm trying to figure out how to explain it. They don't flat out say lies, but they kind of go around it in a way that people can't be like, "Oh, you lied," and they're like, "Oh, I never said that." Do you understand
Yeah,
what I'm saying? Like,
it's like
I don't know.
it's half truths is what they're called. It's
Yes,
basically
yeah,
when
yeah.
you don't necessarily say anything wrong, but what you're saying isn't necessarily
Mhm.
right either. That's why I love, with quotation marks, Tucker Carlson. If you ever hear that guy speak, he is never wrong, but he is never right as well. And it's like you want to agree
Yeah.
with him on a lot of what he's saying, but you know that there's a misinterpretation somewhere. Like I personally was affected by one thing that he was talking about, and I was just like, wait, whoa, 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 whoa. What you're saying is true, but not in the way that you're saying it, kind of deal. So I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. So these are these half truths that I've heard about Tucker Carlson. Um, but yes, that's basically how campus tours work. Is that they'll have like blanket statements saying, oh yeah, we have student housing for you even if you're not a freshman, which is true,
Mhm.
but it's not
Yeah.
widely accessible, which is the part that they
No.
leave out. And it's just
That's why
like,
I could never be. I could never be an orientation or like a tour. I just couldn't do it because I know I would want to be like full disclosures in a sense of like, yes, you can get Starbucks here, but you have to go into your meal plan dollars. You can't use a meal like swipe for it. They were telling me that like, oh yeah, your swipes can be used for pretty much whatever on campus. So it just it, I couldn't. I just couldn't do it because then I just want to put in like a snide remark like, yeah, but and I know I'd probably get fired. So
yeah. Tragically, you never got to experience Carolina Creamery. I know you've heard stories about that place, but oh my gosh. You know the one reason why Carolina Creamery was taken down?
why?
Because people complained that they couldn't use their meal swipes and they had to use meal plan dollars
What?
in order. And I'm just like, yes, what do you think? It's a premium item. So of course you're going to use your meal plan dollars because that's what your meal plan dollars are for. They're to cover any overcharge you have that your meal swipe
Mm-hmm.
doesn't cover. And it also allows you to access premium items such as, Gamecock General,
Yeah.
Starbucks, which I didn't know until you just mentioned it, and then, Carolina
Yeah.
Creamery. Um, that's the one thing that they changed. Now it's Berry Bliss. That place accepts meal
Fucking hate
swipes.
Berry Bliss. Sorry, I just had to let that out. I hate Berry Bliss.
It's okay. I would much rather go to Tropical Smoothie any day of the week.
Oh, I love tropical smoothie. Sorry, continue.
Uh, but like that's the one thing that was changed. You see that Berry Bliss, they take meal swipes rather than meal plan dollars.
hmm
So it's like that's the one thing that changed. But like getting rid of Carolina Creamery so we can put a smoothie place in there, I'm like, no, come on. Like I was so excited second week of school, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go grab myself a milkshake because I feel good today. And I looked over there and I was like, what in the world is this?
Yeah.
It's like the my cousin Vinny, look at this pile of what is this pile of dog shit right here, right?
That's
Uh,
such a good movie. I
it
didn't even know you've
is
watched that. Cool.
I I actually watched it in my AP US government class because apparently the
That's an
legal
interesting
system
class.
because
Yeah.
apparently the legal system involved in my cousin Vinny was actually super accurate to how an actual legal system works.
Really?
Yes.
Would not have
And I
guessed
also
that.
think he just liked the show. Sorry, not the show, the movie. So it's like, oh, okay,
It was a good
fair enough.
movie.
It was a good movie. I really liked it. I mean, I heard a bunch of things about it, a lot of good things
hmm
about it. So I was like, oh, this is finally the movie that people were talking
Yeah.
about. And I watched it. I was like, ah, it's as good as people said it was.
Yeah. I don't know. My parents were all about raising me on like old. I don't want to say old movies, but it's just old movies, I guess. And like Weekend at Bernie's. I don't know if you've ever seen that. There was that. There was a lot of older classics, and I do appreciate that actually because movies now, I will say, I don't really like some movies now. I mean, they've made some pretty good ones in 2024, but a lot of times, like my best friend just told me there may be like a remake of a movie or a show, and I was kind of like, it was a show. I'm like, that's a really good show. Why are they messing with it? But there's a lot of the 90s movies, especially like romance movies, they are top tier. Like, there's nothing. I don't know. Sorry, that just reminded me of it whenever you said my cousin Vinny.
I couldn't
Reminded me
watch
of
romance movies. I'd feel too sad. They're sad movies. That's what
Yeah.
they are. Cause it's like, damn,
Uh,
I was so close. Why are you taking this away from me?
yeah.
Miss Temptation
Yeah.
over here.
I, no, I haven't watched one in a hot minute. I haven't really watched TV since Isaac left the other day. 'Cause there was like shows we watch, and I just can't. I feel so bad watching them without him. I'm kind of so I just sit there on my phone and watch random ass true crime videos, and I just kind of get sad. But I don't
Oh.
know. It's been a long week, and it's like Wednesday.
Oh man, I'm telling you. It has been the same I mean, this is how my life usually is back home. It's wake up, eat, play on my computer, nap, watch YouTube,
hmm
eat, wake up, sleep, yada yada yada. And that's just how my life is like. So sometimes the
hmm
hours will get long, like I'll start to feel it, but then, I'll look on Snapchat, I'll talk to someone.
Yeah.
It's like it's very interesting, but at the exact same time, I am so much happier up here in New York. Even though it is such a boring life, I am so much happier up here than I was in South Carolina. I was just like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh. Um,
Um, yeah. I will say I wake up because like I said, my job again, they keep delaying construction. So at this point I'm looking for new ones to just start. But I wake up and I just lay there and I'm like, it's just like a timeless loop. I make out a little to-do list. Like I cleaned the whole kitchen last night. I
oh,
cleaned everything after Isaac left. It's like I've just been cleaning shit over and over. Like even if it's already been cleaned, I'll clean it again. Like I just and like I go out on runs because I'm back to like the gym and I'm back to like I've lost like 6 pounds in like a week, which may not be the healthiest, but like I'm doing okay. And we have a fish to take care of now. Like funny story, I know like I don't know if I've told you. I think I've mentioned Flipper to you.
nope, you have
Isaac and
not
I
mentioned Flipper.
really?
Nope.
Oh my
What?
God, I love Flipper. Isaac and I went to Charleston last Sunday as like our big like last thing before he went to work in Greensboro for the summer. And we were in Charleston. I was heading to my mom's and we passed a pet. And it'd been kind of a long day. And usually when it's a long day, we'll go to a pet store, just look at the animals, guinea pigs or whatever. And I was just like, why don't we get a fish? And he was like, what? And it was a very impulsive, like last minute thought. So I was like, there's no way we're actually gonna do it. So I went in there and I saw this beta and he's very pretty. He's like a V-tail male or something like that. I don't know. He was a male. He looked really sad. And his colors just kind of he was blue and like a red color and he was just so pretty. And I was like, can we please just I'm
We love
just
beta
gonna grab
fish.
him. So, yeah, so what we did, I got him. I bought some starter things and we went to my mom's and she had a fish tank and a filter. We brought it home. We did not realize that betas are a handful, but after impulsively buying a fish, I was committed. You know, I was like, I'm not gonna impulsively buy something and not take care of it. So we did our research. Their tank needs cycling, which is basically like you put plants in there, you put some bacteria in there because beta just can't live in like clear water. You know, you have to condition their water. It's a whole thing. And again, we did it. You know, me and Isaac mainly did a lot of research, and I'm gonna send you a picture later, but he has like tank is set up, cycled. We gave him like actual food, like bloodworms and stuff. I've invested like $300 into this fish,
Oh
Jared.
my gosh.
Yeah, because we had to get him a new tank because it was too small. So we got him like a 5 gallon tank. I got like a baby Groot, like from the
Yeah.
MCU universe,
Mm-hmm.
like a little statue. Got him a rock. Got him some plants, like actual real life plants where it can cycle the tank. His name's Flipper, and we kind of teach him like little tricks because apparently you could teach beta fish tricks. And now that Isaac's gone, I'm just kind of sitting here with Flipper, uh, doing my own little thing. And I remember I had to leave for a day or two because my grandma wasn't doing too hot, so I left and I had somebody feed him and take care of him. It was just for like a day and a half. And we're really attached to that fish. We made like a whole list of like how to feed him, what to do. Isaac loves the fish to death. And so whenever I came back from seeing my grandma, I literally turned on his light because he has like little LED light. He started doing like little circles, just like going and going. And I was like, why are you so like, what's going on? And I remember Isaac had told me fish can recognize their owners and get excited and like swim around. And Jared, it made me so happy.
Aw.
It made me so happy because he was excited to see me. And I was like, oh my God. So sorry, that was a really long rant about Flipper, but he's an
I wouldn't say it
amazing
was a
little
rant.
fish.
I wouldn't say it was a rant. It was more like story
Yeah.
time. Catch me up.
Yeah. Well, we feed him with tweezers. Like we cut his little it's like a frozen block of food. You thaw it out. It's like bloodworms and like different nutrition stuff. It's not just flakes because we realize that's really bad for him. We feed him with little tweezers and he comes to the top and he just takes it off the Oh, he's such a cute little fish. I'm looking at him now. But
Aw.
yeah, I got it because I knew Isaac, you know, was gonna be gone most of the summer, and I was really sad because I'm practically staying here until my apartment. I can move into there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just the past few nights I haven't been able to sleep because I'm scared somebody's just gonna break in. Because I'm
Oh,
alone pretty much until his roommate moves in. I'm alone. So it's been a little weird, a little tough, but I don't
yeah.
know. It
You
was
know,
just
the one,
a long
yeah.
thing.
The great thing about fish is that, you can take care of them, and then once eventually their time to come, just like cows, you know, you can harvest their
No,
bodies and use for food.
no. Absolutely. No, okay, because Isaac joked about that, and I was like, no. It made me sick to my stomach thinking about cooking and eating a beta.
I'm
I'll eat
inviting you
him.
for
Like, I
sushi
have
the
no
second I
problem.
come down to South Carolina. I'm inviting you for
Oh my
sushi.
God. Okay, that's different than eating a beta fish. But,
Yeah, I mean, and
he got it.
sushi's just
Okay.
fish and seaweed.
hmm He got his color back, though. Because, like, once betas are stressed out, they kind of lose their color a little bit, and he got it back. So, I
Mm,
mean, he's a happy little fish. And they live up to, like, 2 to 4 years. And I think he was probably about a year old after we did our research. So he's got another year or three in him. So you know,
yeah.
his time will not be coming soon, Jared. But not gonna be turned into food. Because like I said, Isaac said that exact same thing, and I was like, absolutely. But I mean, yeah, it's. I know you mentioned like New York, you have like your little, I guess, routine, but I'm just, I guess, starting work would help me with my routine. 'Cause again, I'm just going insane staying here. I thought about texting you the other day and being like, "Oh, do you want to like hang out or go get Sonic or something?" And then I realized you were in New York. Fuck.
Ha ha ha.
Sorry, I shouldn't cuss.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was like,
sucks to
dang
suck.
it. Probably funny too.
Imagine not
But how
living
is New
states
York?
away. How was New
Okay, you
York?
know what?
Uh,
Yeah, how is New York?
it's pretty nice. I mean, of course, you can't go wrong with the nature up here in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that it's awfully pretty, being back up here and seeing all the landscape. Um, haven't been able to see any of my friends just yet, or friends with quotation marks. They haven't planned anything, and I haven't made any efforts to go visit my high school.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not one of those like super seniors that's like, oh my gosh, I gotta go visit my high school. No, I got some people there that I know would really like for me to visit or have been asking me to
Mm-hmm.
visit for a long time now. I was like, okay, I'll make one visit to the high school and say hi to y'all. Um, a couple of them are the freshmen that
Yeah.
I led during my senior year when I was a section leader, who are now section leaders
Mm-hmm.
themselves, and they've been
Yeah.
telling me about how hard it is, and how I made it look so easy. Um,
A subtle brag, subtle brag.
what? Oh yeah,
I
no,
said
no.
subtle brag.
Oh no, they've stroked my ego so much. It's actually it's like amazing. I've never been so confident in a teaching position
Mhm.
than what they've been telling me. Like
Yeah.
after like everything's said and done, because I still have the
Mhm.
letters of one of those people. I stick them on.
Yeah.
You know how I had in my old room, how I had a whole bunch of
Mhm.
posters, not posters, but like letters and stuff.
Letters.
One of
Yeah, I thought that
those,
was really
yeah,
cute.
one of those is from them, and it's titled "Thank you for being such a good section leader," and it was like this
Mhm.
handwritten note, and it was talking to me about all this different stuff about how I helped her, and such. I was like, oh, that is so sweet. I think I posted it on my Snapchat story one time, probably a couple
Mhm.
times
I do
actually.
remember that.
But it was just like,
Yeah.
oh. But yeah, I probably should pay a visit to the high school, see my teachers, um, catch up with them, and whatnot. But I don't know if I'm gonna instigate that at all.
Mhm.
Um, let's see, let's see. What else is there? Oh, the other day. So I have one of my favorite YouTubers on YouTube is a guy by the name of Kurzganot. Um, and he's
Okay.
this and he's this like German infographic YouTuber who does little digestible videos on different scientific topics and theory videos on let's say we had a little like a rail gun that could shoot satellites into space and it's all efficient and everything. What could we do with that? And apparently you can make a thing called a Dyson swarm. Now, you've probably heard of the
Oh,
term Dyson sphere before. Have you ever heard
I've
of the term?
heard of it. I don't know what it is.
So, Dyson sphere, basically, it is considered the third tier of civilization, where you're able to harness, or it's either the third tier or second tier of a civilization, where you're basically able to harness the energy of your sun, right, in order to produce
Oh.
energy for the entire solar system.
Okay.
And the problem with having that is that in order to take the energy from it, you need to basically encapsulate it in a one big old solar panel in order to capture the whole energy of the sun. And what does that end up doing? It blocks the light from reaching to the other
Mm.
planets, so all the other planets turn cold because there's no longer heat coming from the sun. So that's why a Dyson sphere is not really scientifically, well, good for people on Earth. So an alternative to that is a network of mini solar panels that act as like satellites that go around the sun. That it does allow the sun
Oh.
to heat the Earth, but it also allows you to also take the energy from the sun. It's called the Dyson swarm. And
Yeah.
he basically had like a whole entire like 15-20 minute video on that. I was like, wow, if we had the technology to do this, this would be like the greatest thing that we could possibly do because it's basically taking advantage of nuclear fission, not fission, fusion,
Okay.
which is something that's not really possible for us, at least as of yet.
Yeah.
Um, you know what? You know the difference between
I have a
nuclear
feeling it
fission
will
and
be.
fusion? You know what the difference is between the two of them?
No, I thought you were just mispronouncing it.
No.
What's up? Like what? Like is
So
it?
what we currently have, when you have nuclear power plants, are we use a process called nuclear fission, where we basically take particles, blast them against each other, and the energy that is created when they explode and separate, that basically heats up water that ends up producing steam, and that turns a turbine, right?
Okay.
Um, and that's also the exact same way that nuclear bombs are built. You combine atoms together in order to create a whole bunch of energy. That's nuclear fission. Now, nuclear
Okay.
fusion is the opposite. Instead of having two atoms collide against each other to explode, you're actually combining two atoms together to join and create a bond rather than break it.
Okay.
So, um, it is so incredibly hard to do that the only physical thing in our current solar system that's able to do it is our sun. And the only reason why is because it's so massive and there's so many gases in there that the entire weight of the sun is basically collapsing in on itself. But the explosions and the energy produced by these atoms being pressed against each other and combining to form bonds is so powerful that it's exerting outward. So it's this weird
Yeah.
balance that's happening where it's currently imploding and exploding at the exact same time. And that's why
Okay.
when a sun dies, it actually collapses in on itself because it's run out of fuel in order to burn in order to have an outward force. So it
Yeah.
eventually just collapses itself into, a white dwarf and then eventually into a singularity, which is how you get black holes, which is the densest object known to man. So
Mhm.
um, we as humans right now are currently exploring a concept called cold fusion, which,
Okay.
contrary to popular belief, is not very cold. It's just colder than the
What?
temperature of the sun, right? So we're
Well, the
basically
temperature of the
exploring
sun is
the
pretty
temperature
good.
of the sun is pretty hot. So anything
Yeah.
less than that is considered cold fusion. So we're basically trying to combine, atoms together in order to create steam. And the problem is we're not able to do it without melting our systems. Because again, in order to do this, you have to have the energy
Mhm.
and the temperature of the sun, which is just not possible, right? And so
Yeah.
we as humans right now are trying to figure out a way in order to create a thing called it that's a net positive, where the amount of energy that's putting into it is less than the energy that's being put out of it. So when you see
Okay.
breakthrough, I believe there is, or at least there have been breakthroughs in net positive nuclear fission in the past like 4-ish years. You'll probably see articles about it every now and then. But if we were to create a sustainable net positive nuclear fission reactor, we could basically, it basically has the same amount of power as like hundreds of nuclear power plants, and it would
Yeah.
be entirely green energy, like the greenest energy that you can probably have, right? So
Yeah.
long tangent about Dyson swarms, Dyson spheres, nuclear fission, and nuclear fusion. Hopefully, I don't have any like what's the word I'm looking for? Nuclear engineers in the comments or nuclear engineers listening to this that are squirming whenever I try to explain this stuff. Um, but that's basically what Kurzgesagt teaches about. He teaches about all these different scientific stuff. He also had a video talking about the concept of universal basic income, which was a very
Oh.
prominent thing that happened during the 2020 campaign, where a Democratic candidate by the name of Andrew Yang prominently used as his platform was universal basic income.
Yeah.
And do you know what universal basic income is?
Isaac's explained it to me before, so partially.
So
Um.
basically, yeah. So universal basic income is the is a socialist uh, economic idea that basically says everybody gets paid the same amount of money and it gets a check in the mail at any
Okay.
given time. Everybody has an income. There's nobody that doesn't have an income. Um, Now, the thing is, in the United States, in order to we also could have universal basic income. We'd have to take away from Social Security and the defense
Mhm.
budget and all these other programs that we've had since the beginning of since the beginning of the United States. But we could have a system in place where we have universal basic income. And what the benefit is for us is that if we give every single American above the age of 18 $1,000 a month, we basically eliminate poverty in its entirety in the United States. Now, a $1,000 a month seems a lot, but then you take that into a year, 12,000. No, nobody can live on
Yeah.
$12,000 a year, right? But it is enough money to the fact that you're not in poverty. So for the people who don't really need it, it's just stuff that they can put into like a bank account. And
Mhm.
when Andrew Yang personally went out and funded some of these universal basic income programs, um, a lot of people said it's like, yeah, it's all right. It's just peace of mind money. And a lot of them ended up, especially the middle class citizens, put it into
Yeah.
college funds because that those
Okay.
$1,000 could accumulate to over, a child's 18 years. If you start investing your $1,000 since they've been born, by the time you go to college, you have over, you have $96,000. Actually, no, 12,000 times
Wow.
18 years. You have over
That's 216.
$100,000.
That's
206
216,000.
$216,000 that you could put towards college. You could basically guarantee everybody going to college if you just set aside $1,000 a month. If there's a program that has $1,000 a month and you start investing the second this child is born and the second they graduate, which is just an added benefit to all of it. But then there's talk about, how will this inflect, if everybody's getting $1,000 a month, wouldn't this inflate the economy? And will this inflate
Mhm.
prices? Yes, it does inflate prices. But when you're taking it to a grand scheme, it only increases like the price of things by cents. Doesn't increase it by like, the cost of milk isn't going to drastically increase $10 because everybody has $1,000 a month. And
Yeah.
so it's like, oh, okay. And again, there's also limitations. You heard that I stated over the age of 18,
Yeah.
you are a U.S. adult and you are a citizen of the United States. People that are not citizens of the United States do not benefit from this program. And if you are a citizen of the United States and you're under the age of 18, you also do not benefit from the $1,000 a month. So
Yeah.
there are limitations to it, as with anything, but overall, it is such a great idea, and there are so many upsides to it that just people get so caught up in like, oh, my taxes or oh,
Mhm.
inflation. They don't think big picture ideas. But
Yeah,
thanks
no,
to
I agree.
yeah, but thanks to
So
Andrew Yang and him bringing it so close, bringing it up to the table, even though he didn't win the election or the primary, the talk about universal basic income is still a topic that's being talked about in modern day American politics. So even though he didn't do anything physically, the impact that he made will last well beyond his presidential career if he has one. So he also had a video on that. But most recently, so the Harken Back, Kurzgenot, the German YouTuber, released a video the other day, and the title of it was "Smoking is Awesome." And I'm just like, huh? This guy who's been talking about all these different scientific things and who is very well respected in the community for being, accurate, being well sourced and stuff like that. Why is he talking about smoking, universally accepted as something that's bad for you? Why is he saying it's awesome? And I thought
yeah.
and I thought the funniest thing about that entire video was the first sentence. And the video
Oh,
literally starts out with the problem with smoking. And I'm just like, what? You titled the video "Smoking is Awesome," and the first sentence you have is smoking. the problem with smoking. I'm just like, oh, okay. I wonder how this video is gonna pan out. And he probably spends, 3 or 4 minutes talking about the upsides to smoking, how it's a stress reliever. It gives you excuse to go on breaks, which is good for you mentally. It's a social thing to do in some cultures, so it allows you to fit in, and it also allows you to have it cures a temporary problem by giving you an almost immediate solution.
Yeah.
And the only negative side effects of smoking are the fact that if you try to quit, it hurts you, kind of deal. And that's like
Yeah.
within like the first 3 or 4 minutes of it. And then he spends the next like 10 minutes of it talking about what exactly happens when you're smoking. And he talks about what's composed of it. It's the dried up tobacco leaves inside a little cigarette. You smoke it, you're inhaling, all these different, chemicals, your beryllium, ceruleum, iron, nickel, all these different, arsenic is also in there as well, and you're just ingesting all of that. And the mucus glands that are inside your lung, which are supposed to protect you against harmful chemicals like that, are so incredibly overwhelmed that they stop working. And what ends up happening
Oh
is you
god.
have tar buildup in your lungs, and
Mm.
then eventually in your, what's your larynx, I think that's what it's called, and then
Mm.
it eventually builds up in your lungs as well. And
Yeah.
your alveoli are so overworked from trying to filter out everything that they end up just exploding, and
Oh.
they don't do they, it causes irreversible damage. And then on top of that, the it also enters your bloodstream as well, since that's how respiratory things work. You take the oxygen from outside, you take the gases from the outside, and it filters it in through capillary action through the alveoli and into the bloodstream. That's how you get oxygen to your blood, right? So all
Yeah.
the little metals that are accumulating from the gas that are entering these exposed areas in the alveoli eventually get caught up in your bloodstream and end up creating microscars in your blood vessels and also increase blood clotting, which has an inverse side effect since your liver is now being overworked by not being able to clean your blood out. The clotting caused by the metals clogging up and cutting yourself basically increase your heart rate because your heart needs to pump more because there's an equation out there for volumetric flow rate, and the rate at which a liquid flows is equal to the cross-sectional area of your tubing, and the velocity of the fluid, right? Q equals AV. So if you keep the flow rate the exact same and you decrease the area, in order to compensate from it using basic algebra, you need to increase the velocity in which the liquid can flow, and vice versa. So now your heart needs to pump extra hard in order to pump out the exact same amount of liquid, the same amount of blood through all your blood vessels, and this increases your blood pressure, yada yada yada. Your heart gets overworked, so
Yeah.
when your heart gets overworked, you die faster because your body's aging faster. And I talked about all these different
Yeah.
things and why, and then he asked the golden question: well, why can't people just quit? Well, the thing is,
And
nicotine, when you take it, um, it has such an immediate response to it that if you do it multiple times, your brain almost immediately gets hardwired on it, and that's the only thing that it will ever take is, you know, to increase your dopamine levels. So when you actually
mm.
try to quit, your body is actively killing you to take it again, and that's the entire process. That's why um, there's gum in order to distract yourself, or I know there's
Mhm.
other different treatments for people that
Yeah.
were smoking who want to quit. They just have to deal with that addiction by kind of replacing it with something else until your body eventually re-hardwires itself to no longer look at smoking as the only thing that will make them happy, kind of deal.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, this entire video that a lot of people thought was going to be, groundbreaking. It's like, oh my gosh, is smoking actually good? Is he actually encouraging people to smoke? Actually ended up being an informational video, not necessarily discouraging people to or encouraging people to smoke, but kind of like saying that if you do choose to smoke or you haven't started smoking, this is what happens when you do. And it's kind of like the informed consent in the medical community. Like whenever you go to surgery, you're put down with your medical practitioner and you have a discussion about what exactly they're doing to your body, what it hopes to achieve, the risks involved, and you, as the person who's getting operated on, have the right to say no or say yes. But when you do say yes, you do have to understand the risks involved and all this other
Hmm.
stuff. Same thing is with
Yeah.
smoking. If you're going into smoking and you don't know about the side effects, it's kind of your fault that it's not your fault, but you just weren't informed of what exactly happens when you start smoking, and you're not able to fully accept the consequences of your actions. Rather than if you were told that of the consequences of smoking or having nicotine-related products, um, and you fully accept the risks involved or the inevitable risks that you will have when smoking, it's kind of like, well, that's kind of the life you chose. At least you accept it, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and they also were talking about how people who smoke die about 10 to 20 years earlier than
Hmm.
people who don't
Yeah.
smoke. I was just like, wow, okay, that's fun. That's
Hmm.
fun. Um, so me being the anti-smoker, don't like weed, especially don't like vaping. Um,
Oh yeah.
it was kind of just like oh, so this is exactly what's going on when people have these products and nicotine related products, and these are all the side effects that they have, and
Yeah.
it's like yeah, I told you so kind of deal. But
The I told you. Yeah.
it's frustrating. I mean, I'll let you talk about what your thoughts on it, because I've talked for probably the past 20-30 minutes about this. But it's just, I
Um,
don't know. I never really got the entire concept of putting chemicals into your lungs, understanding that it increases your risk of cancer. It just hurts your body overall just to get a temporary relief of happiness, which you could
yeah.
achieve by doing a lot of different other things, like what you do. Some like running produces, they call it
Hmm.
the runner's high. Um,
Yeah.
you know, eating probably makes people happy. Um, I mean, I don't want to put
Well,
that out
that's
there,
like
but
why.
like drinking also makes people happy as well.
Mhm.
Now,
Yeah.
there are
I mean,
healthier options than, vaping, smoking, or doing weed. Now, that isn't to say that weed doesn't have its medical uses. I personally don't agree with them, but who am I to,
mhm.
say no to a doctor about what's right or wrong for my
Yeah.
body? So I do understand it has medical uses, especially when it comes to people with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD for short.
Yeah.
And I know it does help them with that. And I have seen it used, and I have like experienced what it's like before and after they do that. And it's just like, wow, I am so
Mhm.
glad this person, has, medical marijuana on them in order to calm their nerves. Who, for people who are easily distressed. But then there are people who use it recreationally, and I'm like, okay, all right, what exactly are you using it for? But who am I to judge them on their lives? Same reason why, who are they to judge me on how I live my life, right? So,
Yeah. I agree with that. There's actually have like a very personal um thing to go with that, I guess. It's more so going with the shortest explanation first, like with the medical marijuana. I have an aunt who has multiple sclerosis. I can't even pronounce it. It's MS. It just I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It causes like vision fatigue, like mobility, like walking. She'll have her good days, bad days, depending on her medicine. But I've read articles on it that apparently medical marijuana can help with it. I don't know. I don't know if she's ever tried it, but honestly, like stuff like that, I can understand. PTSD, yeah. I've had my fair share, not a lot, but like I've had a few instances, yeah, where like edibles or whatever, it's just not for me anymore. As far as smoking goes, I don't. I hate it. Like it just, my stepmom used to smoke, and I'm really glad she broke that habit. My mom, she smoked for as long as I can remember, and I think it was after she had my second brother, she went on birth control, and they told her, "Hey, going on this, you cannot smoke. Like you cannot smoke." She was like, "Oh no, I won't." She smoked. She
Oh,
smoked, and she ended up getting blood clots in her head, like in her brain, and
I bet. Yeah.
it put her in the hospital for a while. She had to have brain surgery, and then it happened again a couple years later. I mean, obviously she blamed it on the medication. She blamed it on the birth, which I know certain ones can definitely mess with your lungs, apparently cause like issues with that. But smoking, the doctor was ultimately like, "Hey, it's because you smoked and you need to stop." So after she got better the first time, she stopped smoking. Surprisingly, she stopped smoking. My stepdad still smoked though, 'cause both of them smoked. He still smoked, and he was like, "Hey, can you, hand me a cigarette off the counter?" Because he was outside. She lit it, and she's like, "What if I like try it again?" And I was like, "Why would you do that after what just happened to you a couple years ago?" And she's like, "Oh, it's just like one hit or whatever." And I'm like, "No, it's nicotine. Nicotine is addictive. You're gonna like just don't do it." She did it. Um, and then after that, she fell back into smoking. And then recently, when my dad, not recently, but like soon after that, I was 10 and my dad had gotten custody of me. And the next day, she was in the hospital with another blood clot. And I was like, "What is going on?" And it was apparently she's like, "Oh, it's the stress and like from you going there and like this and that." And we were talking to the doctor, and he was telling my stepdad, he's like, "No, she she started smoking again. It just kind of her body just couldn't, she couldn't do it." And luckily she didn't have to have like a brain surgery the second time, I don't think, but the first time it almost killed her. Like, it's a miracle she did live. And I thought that would kind of like make her not go back to smoking. But now her and my stepdad, and I don't really think she's like, "Oh, it's much better for you." And I'm like, "I don't personally think it is, but you do you." So, just kind of, but smoking runs in my family. Like my great uncle just died last year from lung cancer after having it multiple times after continuously smoking and having the tar build up and all of that. So, I mean, he did it. My grandma does it. My grandpa quit, luckily, because he didn't want to die from it. I mean, my stepmom, again, she luckily quit, but it's just, I don't like it. I don't like the idea of it. Cigarettes are just gross to me. Vaping, I had a very small phase when I was like 14 going through it. I was like, "Let me try it." I was like, "Absolutely not." Like, it just, I don't approve of it. I don't really condone of it. Isaac doesn't really do anything like that. If he started it, I would kind of be like, "Please don't." But it's not my body. I would just kind of give like my opinions and thoughts on it. Um,
Yeah.
Sorry, long rant, but after what happened with my mom, kind of like I don't really
What
mess
wasn't
with
a yeah wasn't a long rant. I went on an even longer one. Um,
it.
but like my issue with smoking, I mean it's always been discouraged, ever since I was little. My parents, my dad told me that he tried smoking once when he was younger, thought it was absolutely revolting, and then never smoked
Hmm.
again. And
Yeah.
my grandfather on my mom's side, he was a big smoker. That was up until I was born. When I was born, he stopped smoking. Um, because he would smoke in the place, and then even when my two older cousins would be around, he would still smoke in the bathroom, right? And that's where he would stay.
Yeah.
But up until I was born, and he also had a scare with his brother passing away from lung
Hmm.
cancer, with obviously complications from smoking. He went cold turkey, and he pretty much committed to that, which I am very
Hmm.
proud of him for. But when you're
Yeah.
smoking for 20, 30 years, um, that does take a toll on your body, and that does do irreversible damage. And eventually, as I got older, I started to see the complications of that. What was once a very bright and cheery individual, eventually was ridden to a wheelchair for the rest of his life.
Hmm.
where he would eventually succumb to he wouldn't succumb to lung cancer, but he would come out of treatment and everything like that. But he eventually succumbed to the chemo and the not the
Yeah.
chemo, but the complications of treatment. And I remember he passed away back in 2017. 2017, that's when he
Mm.
passed away. He passed away the day before Halloween, that morning. And I remember I was like, oh my gosh, this is the inevitability of what happens when you do smoke. And he didn't die from the cancer. He died from the complications of getting cancer treatment. He was in and out of remission at least twice before he eventually succumbed to it. Um, but the one
Yeah.
thing that he always talked to me about was because when I was much younger, I mentioned to him about vaping because vaping was starting to come up and
Mm.
e-cigarettes and all that stuff. And I was like, "Oh yeah, it's the exact same thing as smoking, but without the bad stuff." And he was like, "No, it's the exact same thing." And I was like, "What do you mean? It's water."
Mhm.
He's like, "Well, it's still got nicotine, it still has all those chemicals, it's still equally just as bad." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And he's like, "Promise to me you'll never vape or smoke for the rest of your life." And I was like, I promise, Lolo, I won't do that." So that's
Yeah.
my moral dilemma with vaping and why I kind of look down on people who do
Yeah.
that. And it's kind of like I know what that does to people. I've personally been affected by that. So having these people who, use the excuse of, oh, just makes me happy. My life is tough at home. That's not to say that, um, you know, like your life, being bad is an excuse, and I don't see it as an excuse kind of deal. But it's kind of like, oh, let me play, the world's saddest song on the world's smiles violin, like womp womp. Um,
Yeah.
because it's like there are so many other things that you can do other than that, but of course you choose the unhealthiest option. Like there's therapy, but of course, there's a stigma, mental health, and if you go to a therapist, you have a mental disease, yada yada yada. Um,
Yeah.
and then being able to deal with your emotions properly. It goes into a entire thing about family trauma and stuff about how people who don't have great parents growing up eventually develop strange ways in order to cope with the life that they have, and a great way to and a great and easy way to cope with that is by doing drugs, alcohol, weed, vaping, smoking, everything of the sort. Because we as humans, we like to choose the easiest option. We don't like doing things the hard way. So if we
Mm.
get something that gives us immediate results, we're gonna go for that option before anything else. And especially with today's day and age where we have the access to the entire world at the palm of our hand, and any information that we possibly want is almost virtually instantaneous. And how our brains have been hardwired because of TikTok and stuff. I'm very anti TikTok. I don't know if I mentioned that. Uh,
Really?
yes, I am very anti TikTok. Mostly because of the culture that we now have, where we've shortened our videos and our attention span to like 30, 60 seconds. And if we don't have it for 30, 60
Yeah.
seconds, we're immediately bored or we're distracted by doing something else. We're giving everybody some form of ADHD, right? Some form of minor
Yeah.
ADHD. And you'll probably hear it every now and then. It's TikTok brain rot, right? And
Yeah.
like Livy Dunn versus Baby Gronk, Skibbity only in Ohio, Kai Cenat, Phantom Tax, just absolute gibberish like that. But that is almost lame speak for something else, and it's just like, oh my gosh. So that's my issue with TikTok and how it's kind of started this entire culture. I mean, I personally don't use TikTok, but I've succumbed to it just by using Instagram and Instagram Reels, and sometimes there are YouTube Shorts that pop up, and I'll be watching those, and I'm like, even though I'm not watching TikTok and using my For You
Mhm.
page and stuff like that, I'm still succumbing to the adverse effects of it through other media in order to just keep up with how much of a grip TikTok has. There's also the entire thing about it being owned by a Chinese company, and that's not me being racist and saying that I don't want to use products used by China, but at the exact same time, when you're under an autocracy and a communist government that literally has a rule that the government can seize any private information from any of its companies at any time without rule or reason, does not
Mhm.
make me feel safe about my personal data being in a Chinese company. That's why my opinion on it is either ban it, right, which is what's being done right now, or have it be forced
Mhm.
to an American company where it is not by
Yeah.
law that you have to give away your private information to the government to be used for God knows what, right? Um, I would
The
rather
American
like
company.
it, yeah, exactly. And I know there is an American CEO along with a Chinese CEO. I don't know if the
Mhm.
Chinese CEO has stepped down, but the company of TikTok is still in China, right?
Yeah.
So everybody who uses TikTok and uses their private information in some way, shape, or form is still liable to the Chinese government in the worst of circumstances where they would eventually take their information. So that's why it's like whenever people are arguing about like, oh, the United States government steals your private information, why is this anything different than the Chinese government? We're both, everybody's stealing each other's data. It's like, okay, well, riddle me this. Would you rather the Nazis have access to the
Oh my
nuclear
God.
bomb, or would you rather have the Americans have access to the nuclear bomb? Both are bad, but what would you trust more to use the nuclear bomb? The Nazis or the Americans? And I think a reasonable person would say the Americans. And you
Mhm.
could say the exact same thing. Who would you trust more with your private information? The US government or the Chinese Communist Party? Right? There's a level of difference there. So even though yes, your data is being stolen by the US government and being used for God knows what, I would much rather than the US government using that than the Communist Party of China using that. So that's my entire debacle about TikTok and all that brain rot and my gripes with it. But some people just don't really understand that. I wish I could tell more people about it, but people horses blinders, they only see, oh yeah, they're trying to get rid of, internet freedom. And I'm just like, no, there's a bigger picture here that nobody's wanting to accept. And when they do
Yeah.
eventually hear about it, they don't want to think about bigger picture topics and they just want to, you know, be anti anything just for the sake of
Mhm.
argument. So I'm like, okay, so that's my
Mhm.
long tangent of why I don't like people who vape, smoke, do drugs, drink heavily, or support TikTok during these court trials. So that's my entire thing. I'd like to say that I'm a very reasonable man who makes very reasonable requests, and everything that I do
Mhm.
and say, while it may not be the right thing, like objectively or morally right thing, there is a rhyme and reason. I don't just do things just to say, yeah, I did it. Like I do say things very
Yeah.
deliberately and I do have a passion behind every single word. And if somebody were to question about anything that I said, like I do like I can back it up. Like I can explain more in depth of what exactly I meant there. Or if I do want to go back on my words, I can't explain. It's like, back in that time, this is how I was thinking, but now I think differently. Although that doesn't really happen a lot because I'm usually right,
Yeah.
as I always am.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Yeah. Mhm. Sure.
um, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's just yeah.
I don't know. I have like a much bigger problem with people, not people, like society today, I guess. Again, a lot of I had this whole conversation with Isaac. A lot of people raise their kids on tablets, phones,
Oh
whatever.
my gosh.
Um, yeah, and it's just not a lot of people know. They hear something like you were saying, like, oh, we're trying to ban TikTok. They don't actually know what's going on. It's like a bandwagon of just like this is gonna happen if you do this. Like nobody really ever does the research, and it just causes like a whole thing of like obnoxious and ignorant people who are just like, I know what's going on. This is gonna happen. You can't do that or this, and they just keep going. And I'm kind of just like, okay. Um, I mean, I think TikTok should be like American, like for us, I guess, like have our own thing. Because I don't know what's going on with like Japan, like everything that's happening. So I don't really have like the educational like material in my brain to really talk on it. But at the same time, like I do think we should kind of have it because people do use it as in like there are some education. There's like a whole STEM section to TikTok. There is like a little bit of education to it as far as that goes, and just entertainment purposes. But I know people do have shops, and that's how they make their money, just selling stuff. But at the same time, it's like sometimes you'll get lied to. It is kind of brain rotting. Like I've noticed my attention span. I mean, my attention span's always been, but it's getting shorter. Like I can definitely see where you're coming from on that, if any of that made sense. I see where you're coming from.
And one of the funniest things, you mentioned the STEM page, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
it's actually very funny. The reason why that was created was actually created by the Chinese. Um, and that's the only form, and since the China regulates the internet in
Mm-hmm.
China, um,
Really?
that's the only For You page that Chinese kids have access to when it comes to TikTok, is the STEM page.
Hmm.
Because
I
they don't
enjoy it
believe
too.
they believe in like, seeing Western ideas, or
Hmm.
again, the brain rot. All they care about is educating the next workforce, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, that is terrible. I mean,
Hmm.
good that they're trying to make their people smarter, but like, oh my gosh, that is terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. It's just the whole thing. Like I said, I've had many conversations about it with other people. It's just insane to me how we went from just, you know, I'm not saying our country wasn't always in poverty or not saying we've always been a mess, but things used to be so different. And now, today that you have all this technology, like, yes, it can be used for good. Like, I could literally pull up how to code something on YouTube and learn it from there where I can, it'll help. But there's just some stuff, technology has kind of maybe gone too far, or different social media platforms, different entertainment things have just, again, like you said, rotted people's brains. It's a, I guess it's like a new social norm, but it shouldn't be that way. I don't know how to explain the way that I'm thinking or what I'm thinking, but it just, I think our world's kind of shit, honestly, at least our country, but
Yeah,
that's just
and
me.
my thing about that is I don't believe the like I'm an optimist when it comes to a lot of different things. Like I personally don't believe that the world is I mean, the world is terrible.
Yeah.
If you try to look at certain aspects of it, but in holistically, there is good things about the world we live in. Like again, you being able to access the internet and find out from some person who you would have never met in your entire life, and they're going to be able to teach you something that you need in
Mm-hmm.
a great manner, right?
Yeah.
And there's always this thing about 10, 20 years in the future, like, oh yeah, life is terrible right now. It was so good back in the day. And I honestly thought the exact same way, and I still think the exact same way. But it's kind of understanding why I think that way. Why do
Mm-hmm.
I think that my life in 2024 is so much worse than the life I had back in 2012? Where most people in our generation agree that's when things changed, was 2012. Everything started going
Yeah.
downhill from there,
That's
right?
because everybody thought the world was ending in 2012.
Well, yeah, that. Um, but
Wow.
it's also our generation finally matured around that age. And instead of being sheltered by our parents, as most kids should be when it comes to global politics and all this stuff, um, us finally being exposed to the grittier side of humanity at that point now allows us to see the things that the way things were, or the way the things will be, or the way they have been, right? Like I didn't know the Iraqi war was still going on. I didn't know about the war in Afghanistan, at least the gruesome details of it, but that's always been going on. I just
I
now realized it, but that doesn't mean that just because I realized it, the world is worse off today than it was 10 years ago. No, it's been the exact same way. It's just me realizing that. And then with the 2016, I became more politically aware because of how much turmoil the 2016 election caused. So now I became more politically aware, and now I'm saying, oh my gosh, the political system is terrible. But the political system has always been terrible. It's just I'm now realizing it's terrible. So the
Mhm.
world, with people saying that, the world is worse off now than what it has been, it's just you understanding the world as it always has been, but kind of just like going through that process of understanding the world as it is. So that's why,
Yeah.
like, I'll say, like, yes, my life was better in 2012 than it is in 2024, but I was also 12 years younger. I was 8 years old at that point in my life. I'm pretty sure 8-year-old me did not understand the geopolitical significance of the Palestinian war with Israel, and 8-year-old me should probably not have known about the geopolitical implications of
Yeah.
Israel existing in the Middle East, right?
Yeah.
That's an idea that you should form, and an opinion you should form when you're emotionally and mentally mature enough to be having those conversations and to be able to understand the details you should be looking for when you're going to eventually form an opinion. And that's the
Yeah.
worst side of iPad kids, as you mentioned, right? The kids with the tablets and kids with their phones. I didn't have my first SIM card phone until I was a freshman in high school.
Mhm.
I mean, we
Yeah.
had iPads, right? But I didn't have those until probably a couple years after the first iPad released.
Yeah.
Um, and that was a gift from my uncle, right? And
Mhm.
my parents would limit my screen time, and they made sure I was engrossed in other things other than the internet. And I am so glad I did not have social media until my freshman year of high school, because that was just like, I don't know how like middle school me could have handled social media. And I don't know how these kids nowadays handle social media at such a young
Mhm.
age. And I was just like, if you are under the age of like 14, you should not have a social media account, because
Yeah.
by far these youngins have the worst opinions online that I have ever seen in my entire life. Like, again, it's that TikTok brain rot. Oh yes, I know I'm right. This is exactly the way it is. I'm like, no.
Mhm.
It's like, silence, little bro. You do not understand what life is like right now. Let the adults talk. Let the
Yeah.
mature people talk. And it's just like, I remember
Mhm.
back when I was that young, and I was like, oh man, I'm so jealous. They get to have their iPads in front of them, and they get to watch YouTube while they're at the dinner table. And now I'm grown up, and I'm like, I am so thankful my parents never did that to me. Now, do I watch YouTube when I eat? Yes. But I'm also
Mhm.
mature enough to have a conversation at the dinner table and to be able to understand limits on exactly on what I do. Um, and be how to handle myself online. Although, I'm not right 100% of the time. I'm I'm more right than what I would have been, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's an
Okay.
entire spiel. And it's just like, oh, I hope I'm able to teach my children the exact
Yeah.
same way and hopefully have them realize the exact same things that I realized
Mhm.
growing up.
Yeah. I'm trying to explain this. Last weekend, when I moved into Isaac, like I said, it's gone. I'd moved in here. My mom and stepdad, they brought my younger siblings. I have three younger siblings, but the two youngest ones live with her. She brought them, of course. They were going insane. Like buck wild, going insane, running all over the place. And Isaac and I were just kind of like, what the fuck? So we went out to eat, and as soon as they started going crazy, they handed them their phones. And obviously, I was kind of like, let's not. But they're not my kids, not my business. So
Hmm.
Sunday, when we saw them again, and they were doing the same exact thing, they handed them, the tablets to eat, the phone to eat. On the way back from Charleston, it's a like 2 hour car ride. The only thing, again, that Isaac and I talked about were that we were never going to raise kids like that. We were never going to do that. We're gonna beat our kids because they just like threw the kid over the couch and
Nah,
beat his
nah,
ass.
beat
But
him,
like,
beat him up, beat him up, toss him. WWE.
of course, of course, Jared says that. But it's just, the way they're being raised, there's just so many red flags. And it's going to be a cycle that continues. They're going to raise their kids like that, and it's just going to continue. And I refuse to have my kids sit at the dinner table and give them a tablet or a phone to shut them up. Like, that's not, sorry, I'm very passionate about that topic, but it's just not how I want to parent, It's not what I want to do. And,
Hmm.
kids have feelings too. Like, I mean, I don't think a lot of people realize that. I mean, you're like, yeah, they're just kids, but like they're people. They have feelings. You just need to be patient with them and listen. And my mom just she doesn't have, I guess she just doesn't have that patience anymore. I don't know. But I just it's not just her. A lot of people, you're out to eat at dinner and you just see like kids on phones or iPads and they're just quiet and content. If you took that away from them, they'd probably be screaming. Like it's just not something. I just don't like it. I just don't,
It's
it's just a
yeah,
personal
it's a
opinion. I just don't
rewiring
like
of the brain. Yeah. The one thing I
it.
was
Yeah.
able to pride myself on the trip back up was how little I looked on my phone. Like usually when I go on
Mm.
trips, especially on these band trips, I'll watch a movie.
Hmm.
Because, it makes time fly by really quickly when you're watching a movie. Um, but this trip, it was 11 and a half hours, and I probably looked down on my phone for no more than 10 seconds, probably like a handful of times, right? I was mostly
Hmm.
engrossed in having a conversation with my dad, being present in the moment, watching the scenery,
Yeah.
and just being able to do that. And I'm just like, wow, if I was an iPad kid, I probably
Hmm.
would not have been able to just put my phone down and not look at it. I remember I would look up on
Yeah.
my phone and I had like, 10 different snaps that I haven't answered from over like over an hour ago. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, these people probably think I'm dead." No,
Yeah.
because I mean, you probably thought I was dead because I'm chronically online. I mean,
Yeah. Well.
yeah, but like
And
it's a whole entire thing.
I yeah. Before I'm gonna keep mentioning Isaac, sorry, I love the man to death. Before I met him, I would usually, be on my phone. I wouldn't be as cautious like when I was out at 5 Points, just like a little college thing downtown. Just for those of you who don't know, but like I just wouldn't I would be on my phone. I would just not appreciate the things around me. And then after I met him, I realized talking is better. Like I can actually be there and talk to him. And our trip to Ohio, I would watch, sometimes I'd like watch TikTok every now and then, just again because I have a short attention span. But whenever we got the points in the trip that were just so beautiful and we just got engrossed in talking, we would look around. Like it got to the point of like, I don't need a phone to be, it just, so now I'm kind of like, I'm not on my phone as much unless I'm talking to him. Like I don't really answer too many snaps anymore. I mean, you're the few along with my best friend, Isaac, but I just I used to be so engrossed in it, and now I'm just kind of like, it is what it is. Like, I don't need it. And I've grown to appreciate like the things around me. Um, and it's just, I it's just I don't think a lot of people can necessarily do that now, especially just older people with phones like teenagers or again, people my age, people your age. Like it's just I'll walk around campus and see everybody's head down in their phone. The amount of people that have just walked out in front of a car with their heads in their phones, it's just I don't know. So I guess it's not just iPad kids anymore. I think it's just kind of our generation, our society right now.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I'll probably raise my kids the exact same way my parents raised me. I probably
yeah.
won't have them have their own phones until their freshman year of high school. It'll kind of be like I'll
Hmm.
honor my part of the deal. Now that isn't to say I didn't have access to the internet. I just didn't have a phone.
Yeah.
And I feel the difference between
Hmm.
having a phone and having access to the internet are two different things. Like having access to the internet does not imply you have access to social media. Like who's going to use social media on an iPad, right? Other than using YouTube.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to
Yeah.
be looking at my Instagram feed on an iPad, right?
Hmm.
That's just not reasonable. Um,
One time, my professors. Oh, go ahead.
no, 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 you gotta start, you gotta start.
My professor, they didn't allow computers for some reason. I think this was like, fuck, what was this? This was a day in U 101 because the teacher was like, I always see you guys on your computers. You don't really need them. She's like, if you need to take notes or anything, just use like a paper and pencil. And one girl's like, can we use our iPad? She's like, just lay it flat down on the table. I'm sure. So, no computer. I had my iPad, took notes on it, and then I would just scroll on social media on it. So, I mean, that's the one time I did use social media on an iPad. But it was just because, I mean, we weren't really doing, we were taking a couple notes. I mean, really that.
Yeah,
But
I actually don't
sorry,
understand
I thought it was funny.
Why would you need a computer in U101?
because we would sometimes use like an online textbook
Ah, okay,
to look
fair
at like
enough.
different categories and stuff. Yeah. And
Like
we
I
used
remember
Excel for like our schedule planner.
I did a capstone leadership class last semester, and I mean they gave us a booklet, like a handheld booklet for us
Mhm.
to use, and the only time I would use my computer was whenever I needed to present something,
Yeah.
and before class when I was doing, bureaucratic stuff, checking my grades, writing emails, all that different stuff. I can't believe writing emails has been a part of my routine since being a college student. I've gotten so good at writing emails since going to college, it's not even funny. Um, but yeah, it's like I'm gonna assume U101 is gonna be the exact same thing because this doesn't seem to be like you
We
have to
were
memorize
hoping that.
things.
Yeah.
At least I don't
We
know
were.
how my professor is going to teach the class,
Yeah.
but
I loved my U101 professor after like it took me a couple weeks, but I really grew to enjoy her. And I talked to her outside the class and uh I saw her at an event. This was for HRSM whenever I was in that college and she saw me, she's like, "Oh my God, did you dye your hair?" I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Tell me all about it." And we literally just sat there and talked about me
dyeing your
freaking
hair.
dyeing my hair. But yeah, but she was like the sweetest person. And I hope every U101 professor is like that because it just did help me enjoy the first semester of college a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And the people who don't like University 101 don't understand, or at least not necessarily don't understand, but don't appreciate the actual implications of what that class is. It's not a
Hmm.
class. It's more of an excuse for you to build a, like, it forces you to build a social network. And if you don't build
Hmm.
that social network or you don't build those connections, you're defeating the entire purpose of what that class exactly is. Like if you're just gonna sit there and just not talk and not interact with people,
Hmm.
just don't take the class because,
Yeah.
that's probably the
I mean,
easiest you're ever going to make friends in your entire life.
mhm. People still send pictures to like our U101 group chat we have on. I think it's what is it, Group Me?
Oh my
I mean,
gosh,
I
I
never
am
like
not having a
I've
group me.
yeah, I've interacted with some of them, but the thing is like something I've noticed throughout college that kind of does get to me a little bit. You'll go to a class and you may make like a friend, I guess, in that class, quotation marks, but I've never spoken to anybody again other than band, but I mean this like you get what I'm saying. I've never one girl added me on Snapchat. Then we became friends throughout the course, and I just never really talked to her again. Like it's just kind of sad to think about. You'll meet these people, but I don't know if you'll ever really have friends
Yeah.
outside of the class from that
Mm,
class. Like I don't know if that
yeah.
makes
Yeah. I know I was having a
sense.
conversation with someone actually yesterday, and they were talking about how there was a photo that they posted on their story, and they said, "Oh yeah, moments before disaster, she got humbled because she forgot the name of the most popular kid in her high school. Like she had
Mm,
to ask her name, what her name was, even though
yeah.
she was the most popular kid." And I was like, yeah. High school is where that's gonna end. I don't. Nobody's gonna care when you go into college whether you know the most popular kid, or even if there is like the most popular kid in college.
Yeah.
Now it depends. I mean, if you go to a 5,000 person school compared to us, where we're
Mhm.
a 35,000 person school, it's gonna be different. But the social hierarchy in college is vastly different and a lot more mature than the feudalistic social hierarchy of high school. High school, you have your preps, then your jocks, then your academia, and then you got your no your what's the word I'm looking for? Um, your proletariat class, and then you
Mm,
got your degenerates, for lack of a better term. Um,
yeah.
in college, you know, it's not one big old social structure. You're kind of all in the exact same place, but it's a lot of
Mhm.
micro social structures, and they're always
Yeah.
formed by classes. Like, whose
Mhm.
advice are you going to take from in a class? You're going to take the advice from the smartest kid. It's not based off popularity or based off looks, it's based off performance. And that's when you befriend people. That's when you form groups. You form groups of people that you think are smart and that you can talk to, and then that's how you form friendships, and then those inner circles start intertwining. You start meeting new people. Like, you'd be surprised of how many people I met this year who I've been in class with since freshman year, who I just met. Like, it was so funny. This one girl, her name was McMillan, right? And I
Mhm.
knew of her because she was always in a group mate with me in every single one of my
Yeah.
class, or at least most of my engineering related classes. But I never actually knew who she was face to face up until literally the last week of school when we had a project, and one of my friends, who I do hang out with outside of class, ended up having her for a project, and she came in, and I'm just all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Kate. And then
Mhm.
the funniest thing is she's like, oh hey Jared, and I was like, oh my gosh, I am so embarrassed. This person just flat out knows my name, and I've never seen this person. I've only known this person's name, and that's about it. And I felt so bad. I was like, oh my gosh. I ended up friending her on LinkedIn after that,
No,
because I
I
was
thought
like,
the
oh,
link.
okay. I was like, okay, this is Kate. This is Kate. I was like, okay, I know she'll be a great networking thing in the future. But it was just like, oh my gosh. But yeah, there's like micro social structures within your classes and then within your major. It's not an everybody knows everybody type of mentality like in high school.
Mhm.
It's kind of like you kind of have your group of people, and then those group of people eventually invite into your inner circle. So your circle expands by the more people you know.
Yeah.
And then frats and sororities, I mean, that has a built-in hierarchy structure. You know,
Yeah.
you have your frat leaders, and then you have your officers, and you have like, I don't know what comes after that, but then you got your regular folk, and then you got the people
Yeah.
down below, all the regular folk. And but that's just a product of the system, rather than something that's organic, like high school is. High school has a very
Yeah.
organic social structure. Um, Frats and sororities have a very rigid social structure.
Mhm.
It's like a caste system almost.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
but it's just
I know
like,
some. Oh, go ahead.
no, 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 that was the end of my topic. You
Um,
go.
I was saying like high school, I had a really close. I had like a very wide circle of close friends. Like it was just whatever. But when it came to college, I have a very small group of close friends, and then I have like a larger group of just people I call a friend. I could talk to sometimes, but there's a very small circle consists of like you know I now count you in that, but like you, Kiara, Louie, and then Isaac. There are other people who I wouldn't mind talking to, opening up to, but it just doesn't feel as natural, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of came. It didn't come as a shock to me because I knew it was gonna happen, but it just kind of, I don't know, not lonely. It kind of hits, in the sense of I'm here this summer and there's one person I do plan to hang out with, her boyfriend, and then like doing whatever, but it just gets so lonely. Like I don't know how to explain it. Um, but I know a lot of people coming out of high school, if they're like the most popular person, they come to college and then it's like newsflash, you're not the shit. Like you're not everything. It just sorry, that was very like I don't know. And then there's like people like I'm gonna name like Clayton, Kyler, Mike. Oh, just kidding, Clayton, Kyler. You would not expect that in my hometown if they were in my band. I'd be like, no way. Like that's a joke because you just wouldn't expect people of their I don't want to say their status, but you would expect people like Tyler Clayton to be in marketing band, I guess you would say.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I
they're
mean,
awesome. Like glad that like
I had the exact same reaction. My Actually, I think you probably already know this. Me and Kyler were in the exact same orientation group, and we were actually paired
mhm.
together for roommates, for a new
Oh
student orientation.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I told you about this, so it's actually crazy that I was like, no way, this like when he told me, because I casually brought up like Carolina band because I was like trying to make conversation with him, and he's like, oh yeah,
Mhm.
what is so am I. I was like, oh okay, what instrument do you play? And I'm like mellophone. He's like, you're joking me, right? I was like, no. He's like, I'm also
Mhm.
mellophone. I'm like, what? And we pulled up the Susan group chat,
Oh
and I see him right there,
yeah.
Kyler. I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, wow, that is crazy. And his parents didn't come up, so my family basically adopted him into our group. So he basically
Mm.
hung around with
Yeah.
us for as long as he could during all the different things.
Yeah.
Um, so it was really nice for me personally to basically abandon my entire friend group that I
Yeah.
developed back in high school to move down here, which by far one of the best decisions I have ever made. And I do not
Yeah.
regret it for a single moment. Um, but I knew that building a friend group from the ground up was going to be a very difficult and a very, demanding thing of me. And Kyler, being as open as he was, um, being able to go into campus already knowing someone, going into band camp already knowing someone, was just it was so nice. And that, eventually bloomed to me knowing everybody in my section. So by the time first day of classes happened, that's when the sniping starts, right? I got sniped first day of classes. And I walked
Damn.
in my first day and my first class, it was an 8:30 and it was vector calculus. And guess who I see at the other end of the room? It's none other than Travis. And me and
Oh my
Travis,
god.
first class that I ever had was with Travis. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So great way to ease into the year. And just it eventually evolved into other things like the other, because the whenever Jacobs has us divide out into different groups based off our
Mhm.
major and or in our school, that's how I was able to meet the only two other civil engineering majors that are in the band.
It was it's
And we all
Travis and
what? No, it's a
oh.
guy by the name of Grady Wright. He's in the
Oh
Sousa
yeah, I know who
section,
you're talking about.
and then Dylan McNaughton. He's a trombone
Mm.
player. Um,
Mm-mm.
so I was able to
Yeah.
befriend Dylan because he was a lot more approachable than Grady. But we
Mhm.
basically had the same classes together, and it was just really nice to be able to have those connections already in there. And then Dylan was able to find other people, and then now I met this other guy named Reddick, who just does not look like an engineer in the slightest, right? He looks like a business major, but he's an engineer, very dedicated to his work ethic, very loving boyfriend to his girlfriend. Wouldn't say the brightest bulb in the
Oh.
bunch, but he knows that, and but he's always open to like teachable moments and stuff like that. He's always open to learning. He's always asking questions, and that's just something I admire so much about him. Um, but it's just like that. It slowly expands. The more classes you do, the more things you go to. And if it wasn't for band down here, I don't think I would have had half the opportunities that I have now in order to explore this
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Um,
Mm.
but it's just crazy. All of it's just crazy. So that's what I hope to achieve with U101. I hope to, create the exact same environment. And what is also really nice about it is it also helps me be in a teaching position, which is something that I just recently discovered I've always had a passion about when it
Yeah.
comes to
I can see
teaching.
that. Mhm.
Um, Even though I actually considered it back in middle school, being a history teacher, because I was really
But way
passionate
back.
about history. I really was passionate about talking. Um, and I was just like, maybe I'll be a history teacher. Then I saw the pay, and I was like, you know what? Maybe not. I don't want to do that. Then I
Yeah.
thought about being a musician. Then I saw, a person who currently is the first chair in um, the Sydney Opera House for French horn, who was under the
Mhm.
exact same private teacher that I had, right? And she talks about like
Yeah.
10 years where she was working like multiple jobs, and I was just like, nope, that is not the life I want. Um,
Yeah. They can
so
make a lot of money.
yeah, so that's why I landed on engineering. But that isn't to say that I don't enjoy understanding things. I enjoy understanding things a lot, and being able to teach other people who ask me questions and teach them the way that I think, and for them to have their aha moment just like I did is probably the
Yeah.
greatest satisfaction I've ever had. And I was able to get doses of that when I was a section leader and being able to teach them the same things I learned. Of course, they're not at the same caliber as me, but to kind of set those foundations of what they should be thinking about, how exactly I would tackle this, this and that. But more importantly, being a section leader, I learned it wasn't all about teaching.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was building friendships. It was teaching them how to be a better person, how to be more accepting of others, and for them to love each other more than they love the music. Because you can love the music all you want, but if you really don't like the people around you, it's going to take the
Yeah.
fun out away of the music. So that's what I discussed about in like a couple of scholarship essays when I was talking about like being a section leader in my time there. Was I realized I spent more time teaching them social skills and being able to talk with them, being able to understand a bunch of different things. And that music was kind of just a medium that I could talk to them about this. It was an excuse to talk to them about these different things. And, they've been able to emulate that through their years. And I'm looking at my section, they're happier than when I was a freshman. And I was kind of like,
Yeah.
huh, it's like, I don't want to say that I started it. It was actually the guy before me who
Yeah.
started it. There's a guy by the name of Jason Chen, and he is currently in his third year at MIT. He is a
Yeah.
I don't know if he's nuclear, electrical. I don't know what type of engineering he is nowadays. Um, but when he was um, a year older than me, obviously, and we didn't really have the greatest year our first year because one of our section leaders was terrible and all of us would complain
Yeah.
about her behind her back, right? And me and my good friend Facundo, we were the only two freshmen in that class, and we would be like, okay, we didn't really talk much, but eventually we opened up as the year went on. We eventually became inseparable when it came to anything band related. We'd always do things together and stuff like that. It was very much yin and yang. He would be super serious and I'd be very relaxed, but then I had the musical knowledge where he lacked. It was kind of like we were able to feed
Mm.
off each other's energy a lot. And that grew up all the way
Yeah.
towards our senior year. So when all the leadership was gone and it was eventually Jason's turn to be leadership, he was kind of like, yeah, we all know what we want to have in a leadership. I may have the title, but we're all technically leaders. And we joked around about, we're turning the mellophone sections into like the Communist Party, where we're all equals. Everybody's a leader. And it was kind of just having that liberty to do whatever we wanted. Well, the reason why we were able to do whatever we wanted was because we all knew exactly what we wanted to achieve. Um, and
Yeah.
that's just kind of the mentality I wanted to spread on to my peers. The freshmen that I was bringing in was to have them have a better experience, the experience that I would have wanted to have, the section leaders that I would have wanted to, look up to when they're looking at, and they've been saying to me like they've been trying to emulate the things that I do, how great of an influence I was, and I was just like, and how they want to spread that to the next generation. It's just like just because of one simple thing of um, my section leader, my junior year of high school, um, being able to be that open and friendly, and then me eventually assuming that role. Um, it was just it's nice to be able to see the ripple effects of how the
Mm.
entire like mentality has changed about the mellophone section and band as a whole since I graduated there from when I was
Yeah.
there initially. I was just like, huh, you know, there is an impact that I had. And
Yeah.
again, not to like, toot my own horn like I've been doing. But I don't know if you listened to it in one of my podcasts, but I think I talked about it. It's one of the earlier ones, the ones that I did after my first semester, and I didn't really realize the impact I had on my high school and on my band
Mhm.
until I went
Yeah.
to visit there during the winter. I went in there and I just nonchalantly sat down in a chair right next to a leadership meeting, and all of a sudden one of the guys was like, "Oh, hey, Jared," and then they're like, "Wait, Jared?" It took them like 3 seconds to understand
Yeah.
that I should not have been there, but it was so casual that they're like, "Oh, hey," they didn't really think anything of it. But then it started going around the room that it's like, "Hey, Jared is here." And I'm pretty sure everybody that was there in that room gave me a hug, gave me a high five. They're like, "Oh my gosh, it's so great to see you. I missed you so much." And another funny thing was some of the freshmen who have heard stories about me were like, "Wait, "You're the Jared I hear about?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am. I am the Jared that everybody talks about." They're like, "Oh man, that's so cool to hear so many good things about you." And there's this one kid who was in choir. So I was a choir kid back in high school. I did choir and
I
band.
can see that.
And one of the things that I did my senior year um, was not either be choir president, which I was encouraged to do, or be the bass section leader, which I was also heavily
Mhm.
encouraged to do. I opted to do neither of them because I was passionate about neither. Right? I was
Yeah.
fully committed to band. Choir was kind of like this hobby thing. But the one thing I did do was after every single rehearsal, I would gather everybody in the bass section and tenor sections um, folders, and I
Yeah.
would sort them all out and put them in their own little holes. They're like little cubby holes that they had. Because they had places to go, but my next class after choir was band, and band was just right below the choir room, so I didn't have to go anywhere in a rush. So I did that the entirety of my senior year, and it was very funny on the days that I was absent. They're like, "Jared, I didn't know where to place my folder because you've always done it for
Oh
me." And
my
I'm like, "I'm
god.
sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." But it was funny because I came back after I was done with my first year, and I ended up visiting the band room, and this one kid comes up to me. It's like, "You're Jared?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm Jared." And it's like, "I blame you for this." And I was like, "What are you upset about
Uh-oh.
with me for?" And he's like, "Well, apparently I sat in your exact same spot that you sat in the bass section, and everybody gave me their folders." And I was just like, "Oh my gosh." And like, "Yeah, the person who used to sit there always did the folders for us. So now it's your turn to do that." So,
Uh,
um,
um,
meanwhile, this wasn't a tradition that was before I was here. This was something that I wanted to do purely out of the kindness of my heart. But now to see that they've continued that since I've been gone, just heightens the impact that I've created just by being myself in high school. And it's just like, "Oh, okay, that's cool." But
yeah. I think it's good to have an impact on people like that. I know I was a section leader for a couple years, and we were a very broke high school. We didn't really have much, but I knew that if the people didn't get along, it was over. But that's just the kind of high school I was in. Like if they didn't get along, nothing was gonna get done. There was gonna be arguing, and it just wouldn't do anything. So I made it a goal, like you said way earlier. I made it a goal not only for the music to be good, but for everybody to at least somewhat get along and have a good relationship with each other. And it ended up being good because whenever I left, it had the same effect of like every time I went to like a band competition to see them or do whatever, it was like Abby, oh my god, please just fucking drop out of college and come back. And I was like, no. But I haven't told, like I had what I called her a baby mellophone. I had one mellophone. I mean, I was also over trumpets as well, but I played mellophone, so my main thing was mellophone. So she was mine, like called her like my little understudy. Her name was Riley, and I basically taught her everything I knew. I taught her just not even like you said, not even just music, but social skills and just how to handle things. And whenever I left, she became section leader literally as just a freshman because we didn't have anybody. So she's been doing it for these years. I think she's a junior now, but they don't know that I'm coming back in July to teach band camp. Um, so I'm kind of scared to see how things have gone because I think our graduating class was the last class that actually cared about the band and leadership and everything because the class after or before us, or excuse me, not after us, yeah, the class now that does leadership, they just don't really care. Um, and it's just scary to think about what I'm about to walk into in July. Mm, And I think I'll have to work on definitely making them have that relationship again, at least in band, to where they can work together and make good music and be passionate about what they're doing. Um, because a lot of people surprisingly don't like band; they're just there to get like a gym credit
yeah,
for marching.
um,
So I don't know.
yeah. I we have a similar thing. Like the thing is about band, you're required to do band if you want to do like one of the sit down ensembles.
Okay.
So if you want to do one of the sit down ensembles, you have to do marching band. There's no way around it. You can do what marching band and not be one of the sit down ensembles, but obviously the
Mm.
vice versa is true. Um, or I don't know if I phrased that properly. I like to use fancy words to make myself feel smarter than I actually am. Um, but the one thing that I think was started my senior year was the lax of some band traditions.
Hmm.
Like there was we like to do this little dance with Hey Joe. Um,
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Joe. I have a wife and dog.
Oh,
We used to do a
what's
little
that?
dance to that,
Oh,
and
sorry, I got really excited.
oh,
Go ahead.
um, and we used to do a little dance to that as like part of our dynamic warm up. And I personally didn't really subscribe to it, and I think that rubbed off on a lot of other people of how just relaxed I was about everything. And then there was also like a foot thing that we would do where we would spell out letters and we'd go like A, B, C, D, E, F, Cookie Monster, whatever. Right? And we had like a
Yeah.
little thing for almost everything. And the thing that I started was at the very end we do a Z and then I would do an optional slash, which again was optional
Cool.
for everybody because some people cross their Z's. I cross my Z's. Um, but some other people don't. A lot of people don't cross their C's. But I was like, I'll do that. So that was something I tried pushing for because I was really passionate about that. But I don't think a lot of people were equally as passionate. I was like, you know what? Okay, that's fine. Um, but yeah, I feel the exact same way. I feel like the kids that are in leadership now and the people since the freshman class that I had are now going to be seniors next year, right?
Mm.
Are they going to be seniors
Yeah.
next year? Yes, they'll be seniors next year. Once that class is gone, it's going to be an entirely new generation of students
Yeah.
that are going to be, leading this band, being, upkept or whatever. Same thing like no, actually, my brother's generation, but he's a year younger than me, was the last generation of what we call the Jason Chen era, where he was in leadership and he was the last class there. So it's just like, oh, okay, this is very
Yeah.
interesting. And how when his class left, there was a very noticeable difference in everything. So, um, but yeah, it's very interesting seeing how much your impact or how you don't understand your impact until you go back to there. You don't really understand the impact while you're in there, or at least
I'm ready to see.
you're ready to what?
I said I'm ready to see like go back in July and then be like, oh my God, and then just 'cause like I said, I didn't tell my rookie. I still call her rookie, my baby mellophone, but like I'm ready to see how that goes. And I'll probably be here again yapping like, oh my God, it's so bad. Like, what do I do?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it may surprise me, you know?
We love the little like bigs that the littles and bigs and band. I
Yeah.
know
Oh yeah.
I had my own little, and oh my gosh, I felt so terrible. First day we had our first sectional, and it was at a section
Mhm.
leader's house, and she was there. She'd never played the mellophone before, right? But she worked harder than anybody. And I remember that
Oh.
first rehearsal, she came, and the thing is, she was learning the French horn under the exact same private teacher that I had, right?
Hmm.
So that's how we were able to relate to each other. But oh my gosh, she was so socially awkward. She didn't like getting
Oh.
involved with anything. I just like, oh my gosh, I feel so terrible. I don't know what to do with this person. Nobody trained me for this. And she cried the first time,
Oh.
the first rehearsal we had. And I was just like, oh my gosh, oh, this is terrible. I don't know what to do. Nobody is able to help me right now. And I told my mom about it because she's a teacher. And I was just like, I don't know what I did wrong. And she's like, you didn't do anything wrong. It's just like this thing, these things take time. Just trust your process. Like, okay. So here I am brainstorming all the things that I could possibly do to help her out for the next week, until the next sectional. And the next
Yeah.
sectional comes, she comes in and just night and day difference in this person. She's talking, she's interacting with people, she's playing better than anybody on her instrument. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, who is this
Yeah.
person? And oh my gosh, she is the person that she started out with, and now the person she's become. I am so proud of the person that she's evolved to. She's now a section leader now. Both of the freshmen that I had, that I was in charge of my senior year, are now section leaders, and
Mhm.
they like to FaceTime me during band competition season. I won't respond to them because my phone's on Do Not Disturb, so I won't see them. But I'll make sure I'll, text them. They'll tell me stuff, and I'm just like, oh, okay. But seeing how open she is now and how friendly and how true to herself she is now, it's just like, man, to think that this is the person that cried the first time I met her and the person who I was stressing about for an entire week on how to make better. And now look at her
Mhm.
now. She's making her own decisions. She's teaching people um,
Yeah.
herself, and it's just like,
It's
aw, it's a
yeah.
very nice story.
Yeah. That's sweet.
Oh, but
But yeah, I'm ready to see what happens, and I'll probably be bothering you back on here, like just talking about it. But
yeah,
I was excited.
it was nice catching up with you. Being able to
Yeah.
talk about these very different things. Listening to me rant, I didn't realize how much I liked ranting. Um,
No, good.
but we are over 2 hours. We did not go under our an hour 30.
Yeah.
we
And then
we
before we got on here, Jared's like, "Oh, yeah, maybe we can keep it under an hour and a half." And I was like, "Yeah."
Nope.
No.
Actually, we were about the hour 30 mark when we were like very engrossed in our like tobacco
Mm,
topic. Um,
yeah.
but but yeah, so I think we'll end it off here. What do you think? Does that
All
sound
right.
good with you? All
Yeah,
right.
I think we're good.
Uh, all right. Well, if you were on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below what you thought of the episode. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcast or Spotify, thank you for listening. If you really like the topics that were discussed, as there were many topics discussed in this video, and just want to share it with someone, just share it, like it, follow the podcast, the playlist, and like the I don't know how it all works out for updates whenever it comes around. And yeah, if I don't see y'all again, good morning, good evening, and good night. Bye bye.